Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to be showing you a delicious pie recipe. This is to make strawberry rhubarb pie. Given that it's spring and rhubarb is still in the grocery stores, I wanted to show you how to make one of my favorite pies. It is so good and just, I love the tart of this pie. Welcome if you're new here, my name is Mina. I try to come out with a new video every week, so please subscribe to see what I make next, and I hope you join me in the fun. So for the pie crust, we will be making it from scratch. This is all you will need. And then for the strawberry rhubarb section, this is what you'll need as well. If you've never had rhubarb before, it looks like celery, but it's got a very tart taste to it. And fun fact, make sure that wherever you are getting this rhubarb from, probably from a grocery store or farmer's market, the leaves are poisonous. They should not come with leaves, but I just want to throw that out there just in case. So essentially you just want the trunk of the rhubarb, so just like the stick of it. Almost, it looks like celery, it's just got a redness to it. Alright, so we're going to start by making our crust. I'm adding 2.5 cups of flour, and because my butter had salt in it, I'm not adding any salt to it, but if you are using unsalted butter, you're going to use 1 cup of unsalted butter and then 1 teaspoon of salt. But if you're using salted butter, then just omit the salt. We're also going to be adding a teaspoon of sugar, and you want to have 6 to 8 tablespoons of ice water on hand, so we're going to be adding that as we work. When I first made my own pie crust from scratch, I got really impatient and I added way too much water because I was trying to make the dough combine quicker. But pie crust is one of those things that you really have to take your time with, or it could really just not work at all. And I've made this pie crust thousands of times, maybe not thousands, but definitely dozens of times, and it's never failed me yet. And it's very simple, and I always have these ingredients on hand just in case I want to whip up my very own pie crust. If you've watched any of my other videos, you've seen me use this whisk. It's called a Danish whisk. I love it so much. It's just so simple, and I don't own a KitchenAid mixer, so it does the job just fine. So now I'm adding 2 more tablespoons so that I'm hitting around the 8 tablespoon mark in total. I'm going to continue to stir that in. And it's important that the butter is chilled, if I didn't mention that already. It just helps combine everything in the long run. Once it gets to a bit of a crummy texture, I like to use my hands. The warmth of your hands just makes the dough a little bit easier to work with, and it binds the ingredients together. You're going to press the dough into 2 even discs, and you want to try to get up as much as you can off of the bowl. You're then going to cover these discs, and then you're going to refrigerate them for 1 hour to 2 days. While that's going, let's go ahead and work on our rhubarb mixture. So to make the rhubarb mixture, you're going to need 3 cups of sliced rhubarb cut into 1/4 inch slices, 2.5 cups of chopped strawberries. I also want to note that I got this recipe from Sally's Baking Addiction. I've used some of her recipes in the past and they're always so good, so I'll link her page in the description. Highly recommend checking her blog out. This pie just came out so good, and it's all a credit to her. Next up, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of packed light brown sugar, 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, and 1/4 cup of cornstarch. I'm going to just continue mixing that in with my whisk. Next up, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of orange juice, a 1/2 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, you'll also want to make sure you've added a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and you're just going to mix that all in. So now we're going to go ahead and set that off to the side, and we're going to go get our dough. So after you finish chilling your dough, you do want to make sure you have time for it to sit out for about 10 minutes to make sure it's warmed up a little bit. I'm going to use the excess part of the butter wrapper to make sure my pan is nice and greased. Nothing goes to waste here. I'm now going to flour my surface and take out one of the doughs, and I'm going to use the warmth of my hands to soften it up. Definitely take your time with this process too. I know you'll want to maybe add some warm water, but don't. Just be very patient with the dough. And try to maintain that disc shape. I thought about cutting this part out, but I wanted to show you just how much time it takes to get the dough the right way. So I sped up this part to 1000%. Flipping it over, rolling it out, making sure it'll fit the tin. And voila, it's done. So now I'm going to carefully peel it off my counter, hoping it doesn't split. And I'm going to plop it into my pan. I'm now going to use my knuckles to make sure it's nice and pressed evenly into the pan. Okay, so next up, I'm going to go ahead and prepare the top, which I'm going for a classic lattice pattern. I'm first going to start off by using a pizza cutter to make some strips. Now I'm going to add the filling. Just a little side note here, this type of pie is very liquidy, so as I was pouring it, I was trying to only pick up the fruit and leave the liquid in the bowl. It can get very soupy, so you want to be careful to really just focus on the fruit and not adding the liquid part of the mix. And now I'm going to add some little chopped bits of butter, around 2 tablespoons, and I'm going to lay the strips on top. You want to think of the lattice pattern as like a basket weaving, and I'm sorry this isn't the best angle. I'll do a little diagram so you can get a better look of how this works. But essentially, whenever you lay your strips, you don't want to press them in just yet because you're probably going to lift them so you can weave the other strips through. It's funny though, because a lot of my friends know me to be very crafty and they always assume that all my bakes come out absolutely measured and perfect, and the truth is they never do. They're always kind of messy and sloppy, but I don't know if that kind of adds to the charm for me. Don't get me wrong though, I always appreciate the baking and the craftsmanship that goes into decoration. I embrace the messiness. I think it makes it part of the fun and the charm of making something homemade. I'm now going to use a fork to finish off the edges to give it the classic look, and I'm just going to take this opportunity to trim any excess crust. I don't have one of those nice silicone brush thingies, so I just cracked an egg and I whisked it with a fork, and then I'm using my fingers just to spread out the yolk all around the crust so it bakes into a pretty golden color. The crust is usually the first to go in the oven, so I recommend taking a few sheets of foil and wrapping them around the edges of the pie. After your oven has been preheated to 400 degrees, you're then going to place it into the oven. For about 20 minutes. After those 20 minutes pass, you're then going to turn down the temperature to 350 degrees and bake for an additional 25 to 30 minutes. Once you take it out of the oven, you're going to want it to cool for at least 3 hours. I got very impatient, and you'll see in the next clip it's very soupy, but it was still super good, and I promise you the longer you wait, the less soupy it is. So actually, when I had this pie for breakfast, it was pretty much a solid at that point, and it held together very well. But anyways, guys, That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I hope that you give this pie a chance, especially if you've never had rhubarb before. Highly recommend it.